So recently, Smogon Scarlet Violet OU Tiering Council has been closely evaluating the preliminary metagame, and after the quick bans have taken place, they have looked at these 7 Pokemon as the next on the radar. And this meaning, this will be like suspect tests. These are basically community driven, and it's not really council driven where they have to quick ban a Pokemon immediately like Hearthflame Ogerpon, which is causing a lot of havoc on the metagame. No, these are 7 Pokemon that are voted by the community whether or not they should remain in the metagame or they should not be in the metagame. So let's go down by one. And I know most of you guys are going to be curious about Bloodmoon Ursaluna, because I did release a video a while ago that I didn't think Bloodmoon Ursaluna was going to be personally good, and I personally thought because of slow speed and special defense that those are 2 things that would probably hinder it. Yeah, I was kind of wrong about that, and yeah, so we can just read over here what it's saying. Bloodmoon Ursaluna right now is a favorite to be suspected next. No surprise there. There's still other considerations though, so this is very not a promise, but just an update. It was only the 2nd highest survey score behind Menifee, but the tides continue to turn since the Ogerpon Hearthflame ban and with other metagame shifts. In addition, more internal council and forum thread-based support has been present for Ursaluna Bloodmoon at this time. It's overwhelmingly strong with superb natural bulk on the physical side already. Calm Mind plus Moonlight sets trend to help minimize its lackluster special defense and circumvent most intellectual counterplay too. So this is probably one of the most common Bloodmoon Ursaluna sets that are really run. Silk Scarf to hold its normal type's power to 1.2 times more power. You got Blood Moon, Hyper Voice, Calm Mind, or Moonlight. You could obviously substitute Calm Mind, or you could probably substitute Hyper Voice with Earth Power. That's probably more common, right? You could do something like this. More likely or not, like this is also a pretty common set. You do Hyper Voice, you get Calm Mind, but then you also keep Vacuum Wave, because priority on this thing is probably what also makes it a bit more broken. And with its ability of Mind's Eye, which fighting normal types hits Ghost, it's literally the thing that Ursaluna needed to be even more busted, because regular Ursaluna struggled doing that, and you could create easier counterplay. Now, what I thought initially is that its special defense stat, which was really like on the low side of 65, and its speed stat, which is still pretty low, it would get countered pretty easily. However, this Pokemon still has a bulky on the physical side, and with a lot of physical attackers currently in the metagame, such as like, for example, I know Ogerpon obviously not the best example, right? But you got Ogerpon or like King Gambit, etc. Right? Those are physical attackers that are in the game that don't like serve well against it. Well, except for Ogerpon, obviously, right? You also got like Gliscor, for example, right? So those are physical attackers that can easily come in and then do a lot of damage. Because of Bloodmoon Ursaluna's bulk, it's able to eat a hit and then dish out for more. There's also flip turn wish shenanigans with the Lola Mola, etc. So this Pokemon really helps from hazards, good support play that are in the metagame right now, and that's why this Pokemon, it can do a lot of damage very quickly and destroy a lot of teams. I know it does a ton of damage to Dango, Corviknight as well, even though Corviknight is supposed to be super bulky as it's flying and steel type. It doesn't take Blood Moon, Silk Scarf, Terra normal pretty well, even if it has a plus Calm Mind as well. It's basically GG. So Bloodmoon Ursaluna, definitely on the radar. Should it be banned? I don't want to be banned, to be honest. I'm having, like, it is a lot of fun on the ladder, I'm not gonna lie, even though I posted that video a while ago, but I don't know. Next one up is Menifee. So Menifee is another potential suspect due to regular support on the surveys. It has been underwhelming to some, including a few people on the council, due to being limited in how many moves it can use and openings it gets. Revenge killing is very possible, but good natural bulk and potential team support can make it so that this can only be done from lower healths. Menifee overall can do a lot of things, and many of them well, but is it broken or just another dynamic offensive pressure? So let's answer that. So this is probably a popular Menifee set I've seen around. I've seen this a couple times, right? You do Take Art, Calm Mind. The idea is you really raise up your stats pretty quickly with Take Art, which raises its special attack and special defense, cures it of like toxic damage or whatever damage you can get, which is basically lets us like negates hydration. Like, why is this even the ability for Menifee? But like, you get Take Art, then you can do Calm Mind, and then you can go for a strong store power, which does more damage for each of his user stat boosts. A similar move, actually no, it is the same exact move as Spother used to get banned earlier this generation, which is like dating back to February now. Wow, that's a long time ago. But any case, yeah, so this is a pretty common set. You could also do like Tail Glow shenanigans, and then you can run like other moves like Ice Beam, Scald. You got like Dazzling Gleam. It's just, there's a lot of good moves on it. Like Acid Armor as well is another good move if you want to like do store power shenanigans, although I would argue you need Take Card to get rid of its user status and then go on. This Pokemon isn't overwhelming OP because it's just a water type, and with basically Mew alike stats with 100 across the board, which in this day and age it's solid, but it's not anything spectacular. It can still be countered relatively easy. Like King Gambit can still do a ton of damage into it. There's also other physical attackers as well that can like really do solid damage and do a good number on it because they're faster. You got Dragonite, Dragapult, where there's Zapdos who's still in the metagame. You still got a Garchomp who does solid damage once you get an SD up with Scale Shot, right? So there's still a lot of Pokemon that can counter it. I don't think Menifee should be banned, honestly. I think Menifee is totally fine. Again, when we touch on Ogerpon like being banned, maybe this is why Menifee should be banned, but I think as of right now, it's honestly fine. It's not too horrible, but Probably later it might be banned. I'm not sure. We might have to wait a couple more bans before we really talk about Menifee. Next up, we're going to talk about Ogerpon Wellspring, which has been one of the best Pokemon since release, including when Ogerpon Heartflame was roaming around free. It is a dynamic breaker with a practical enough defensive profile. With Terra, it's absolutely likely to nab a kill, while even though without it. Sword Stance sets are great options. Utility with U-turn, spikes, knockoff, and other options work too, but these things do not necessarily push it over the edge. There's some counterplay to Ogerpon Wellspring, at least at revenge killing it frequently occurs, and a small handful of things to deal with it defensively, but the main question is if the ladder pool of Pokemon is sufficient or not. This Pokemon does a number on Pokemon's team. For example, one, it's got Water Absorb, which negates basically all rain teams, Menifee Scald, which is why it's in question of why it should be banned in the first place, and being a grass and water type has a great defensive coverage where it can still switch into electric type moves because it only takes like neutral damage because it's a grass type as well. So they're talking about like you can do like knockoff, IV Cudgel, Swords Dance, and you can do something like U-turn. I've also seen like Leech Seed being semi-popular as well. Like you do Leech Seed, and then instead of this, you make it more like defensive, right? Leech Seed spikes, and then you get like IV Cudgel and like Horn Leech. Like I've seen this set as well a lot. Like the idea is it's like basically super bulky. It's supposed to be a bulky attacker, so it comes in, it can be like a defensive monster almost, and you can just make this like adamant, and then you can go like, you switch in, and depending into a favorable Pokemon, right, and you set up a Leech Seed, and then you can keep going for spikes, and then you go for Ivy Cudgel, Horn Leech. That's a one option. Obviously, the more popular option is the offensive set, because the offensive set offers way more utility coverage, etc., whatever you want to name it, so like U-turn, Ivy Cudgel, Swords Dance, and then all that kind of stuff. Its ability of Water Absorb really helps it out. It negates Walking Wake, it negates Menifee. It really stops Alomomola because Alomomola really runs like Flip Turn, Scald, Protect, and like Wish, which are pretty like handleable by Ogerpon Wellspring. It also negates Azumarill. It negates a lot of usable Pokemon and like a lot of water type moves like Dondozo, Liquidation, for example, and Empoleon with its water type moves, Greninja with its Hydro Pump shenanigans as well. And overall, so Grass and Water is a good defensive typing. You can switch into a lot of Pokemon, like Landorus as well again. So there's just a lot that Wellspring Ogerpon can offer both defensively and offensively. While Heartflame was mostly overpowered on the offensive side, I feel like Wellspring is a good balance that could push it over edge because it's really good on balance on both offensively and defensively. Something I don't think Heartflame Ogerpon was as great on in defensive wise, but it's offensively really made up for it, where again, this one is on both sides of the battlefield. Should this thing be banned? Yeah, probably. It's really constraining on the metagame. Like, there's a lot of non-usable Pokemon. I just made a video, right? Like, Azumarill not usable. Alomomola, like, it's good, but it still struggles against this thing, which is, like, super popular. Greninja's, like, not usable. There's a ton of Pokemon that are just not as good because of Ogerpon Wellspring's, like, presence in the battlefield itself. Like, Moltres as well. Like, why would you use Moltres? Heatran especially, actually. Like, Heatran gets walled completely. Fire and Steel, it can't really do much. Sure, it can go for a Magma Storm, but the next turn itself, like, it first has to hit it. The next turn, IV Cudgel is going to come out, and this thing's got Horn Leech, Swords Dance, U-turn as well. So if it predicts a switch out, you can go for a Swords Dance, you can go for a Horn Leech next turn, etc. This thing has got it all. So Ogerpon Wellspring definitely should probably be banned. I would guess if it's probably going to be banned because the community's been talking about it a lot. Our next Pokemon we're going to talk about is King Gambit, and King Gambit, I thought it should have been banned probably before the DLC if we're going to do something like that. I could see I was probably on the fence of it should have been banned or not, so like I wouldn't have minded if it wasn't banned, but I think it should have been banned a while ago, actually, because it's still really strong in the metagame. Black Glass, Supreme Overlord, Terra Fairy, or Terra Flying, Sucker Punch, Kowtow, Cleave, Iron Head, Sword Stance, the typical set with the typical bulky sweeper EV spread, right? This set is unquestionably the best set King Gambit can run. The Terra types, you can manage whatever you want: Terra Flying, Terra Fairy, Terra Fighting even. Terra Dark for more extra edge on the dark type moves, right? So, but Supreme Overlord really does a number for a lot of teams because 10% more power that is permanent, that is not like a Sword Stance, so opponents cannot lower it no matter what, is incredibly insane, and something I think Pokemon was not considering when it came to King Gambit because it's insane, the singles metagame. Now, obviously, I know they're mostly VGC, so they probably didn't really think about it in that sense. But still, King Gambit is really good. Sucker Punch really offers like a 50-50 chance, and your opponent has to guess most of the time if you're going to attack or not, because if they don't attack, then you could go for a Kowtow, Cleave, and Oko them. But if they do attack, Sucker Punch still has a fairly good shot of like Okoing them, if not doing a great deal amount of damage. And because of King Gambit's bulk on the physical and defensive and special defense side, as long as it avoids 4 times effective fighting type moves, or it has to Terrasser terrestrialize, it can make it a bit of a problem. With the terrestrializing game actually being also still a problem because you have to guess like what Terra type King Gambit is. Is it Terra Fire? Is it Terra Fairy? Is it Terra Flying? Is it Terra Dark? There's so many good Terra types for King Gambit that makes it like unbeatable at times in certain end game situations. So King Gambit, it should probably be banned from the OU metagame, but I still do enjoy playing with it nevertheless. So oops, I just skipped right into King Gambit. But Glasscore is next. I did make a video on this earlier, so I'm not going to go too in depth of it, but I'll give you a short brief rundown of what Glasscore really is right now. Glasscore is incredibly potent because not only is it get knockoff Earthquake, and it still has Poison with Toxic Orb and with Terrestrialization to make its defensive typing even better, but this thing got buffed with Spikes and Toxic Spikes. Those are two moves that can really punish opponents for switching out against Glasscore. And Glasscore, Poison types are the things that remove Toxic Spikes. Because Gliscor is a ground and flying, it actually punishes those poison type users coming in with like Earthquake, for example, like Glow King. Glow King can't come in safely without Toxic Spikes coming in, and things like Heatran or Goldango who have Air Balloon, they both can take a knockoff, and then after that they're either subjected to Terrestrialize and force your opponent on his hand, or you can just go for Earthquake and take them out. And with Toxic Orb and Poison with Protect, right, it can also scout out other opponents' moves. It can also Terrestrialize to avoid super effective Ice type damage and instead be resisted to it, and also take neutral from Water type moves, etc. Right? So Glasscore is immensely strengthful on the metagame in terms of just how it fits on like every team. It's such a glue to a lot of Pokemon. And it's incredibly bulky as well. 125 defense, 75 HP, 75 special defense. It's pretty solid all around, so it can take a bunch of hits, dish out a clean hit with a 95 attack stat, and it's relatively fast, kind of fast. I don't know, not probably in this metagame. Back in Gen 4 it was, bro. In Generation 9 with the Power Creep, probably not as much. 95 speed, it's pretty alright, nothing out of this world, but it's still relatively good. It's got a good move pool. It can do anything you want. It can either do Sword Stance and Facade sets. It's incredible. If you guys want to know more about Glasscore and why it's really, really good, check out the video I did a couple days ago. It'll really go in more depth of what I did about Glasscore. I'm not going to be redundant again about like what I said back then. And so the last two we come down to is Goldango and Iron Valiant. So Goldango is pretty much a strain on metagame, and people's argument is that it blocks hazards. I previously didn't see this thing as a problem prior to the DLC per se. Now I get people's argument about like hazards, and probably because of Gliscor's presence, it's why it's pushing it over the top, because Toxic Spikes are getting hard to get rid of, because Defog Corviknight is literally unusable. Defog on any Pokemon, to be honest, is being unusable, and with the rise of Sticky Webs as well for Ogerpon, especially during the Heart Flame era, like Sticky Webs for Bombi with Heart Flame, it was a bit of a hassle. I can see why Goldango wants to be banned. I personally don't think it should be banned. I want to wait and see how the metagame plays out before we say, oh, hazards is real dual thing. Because I haven't, like, Hisu and Samura, like, it's still having a bit of trouble getting off sometimes Hisu's edges, and it's still up to hit. You still got Rapid Spin, Great Tusk, although Great Tusk likes to be more offensive these days because of Gliscor with Ice Spinner, so I guess tries to run an Ice Spinner to counter a Gliscor. But yeah, I don't know. Goldango should it be banned? Yes, I want to wait more on Goldango before we say it should be banned. I mean, personally, I think, yeah, we just gotta either, after maybe a couple more bans, because they're probably gonna ban Ursaluna Bloodmoon because of how ridiculous power it is. Menifee might not be banned, and Ogerpon probably will be banned if I'm gonna guess. But like, so those two Pokemon once have banned, we can see how the metagame is shaping out. What's good, what's bad. Can Cisa's Edge Hamrod still maintain its like momentum that it had prior to the DLC in the post-home metagame? I don't know. I think those are questions that still have to be answered before we come back to Goldango and its ban. Lastly, Iron Valiant is on this radar for its very dynamic offensive pressure with a variety of possible variants that draw counterplay that does not overlap it. It is not straining to the tier unreasonable point now, but they want to keep an eye on it as we proceed. I agree with them. With like Quark Drive, like what, boost your energy, right? Like it's the most popular set, and then you go like Spirit, Break, Knockoff, Close Combat, and then like Ice Punch. That's pretty standard set for this thing. Fast Physical Sweeper, take care of its 130 attack and 160 speed. Absolutely brutal on the offensive end. It's absolutely incredible. And so it can really function both as a special or physical attacker. I think right now there's still solid checks to it, like right, you still got like other Pokemon that can really do like come in and like take like Empoleon can come in on those like fairy type moves. It won't take those fighting type moves well, but it can come on those. You still got counterplay in the form of like Goldango example, right? Like it's not going to do well against knockoff, but it can still be there. Gliscor especially, just as long as it avoids the Ice Punch. King Gambit can still Sucker Punch it, Terrestrialize to Terra Fairy, and then go for Iron Head to clean up into the end game, because that's where Iron Valiant usually is near the end game because of its booster energy shenanigans. You still got Prior to deal with, not to mention Bloodmoon Ursaluna right now. There's just a bunch of other things that need to be addressed, I think, before we come to Iron Valiant. Iron Valiant before wasn't really a problem. it was kind of a problem because of its offensive pressure, but I don't think it should be banned. I don't think it's likely going to be banned at all. There's a bunch of other meta Pokemon that are more of a problem than this thing at the moment. We can probably see this thing probably getting banned maybe in 2 months time, a month and a half time, but this thing's going to definitely take some time. There's no way it's going to be banned right off the bat. There's too many other Pokemon, and because it wasn't really on the radar as much as compared to like King Gambit or Baxcalibur prior to the to the Teal Mask DLC being released, there's still a long ways to go. But yeah, that's about it for me. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think about these Pokemon being on the radar. If you guys are new, be sure to subscribe for more competitive Pokemon content just like this. And thank you to my members for the continual support here on Patreon and on YouTube membership. If you guys wish to support me even further, be sure to join the YouTube membership or Patreon. It's not necessary, but it really helps go a long way. Be sure to join the Chompy Discord. It's free, and we have a fun-loving community over on the Discord. It's fun. You guys will have a blast, ranging from memes, competitive Pokemon, whatever you can name it, right? And yeah, that's about it. Have another video soon in the next couple days, week, I don't know. I've got a bunch of schoolwork as well. So talk to you guys soon. Thanks for watching as always.